Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brown Girl Book Club. So, this live show, we are talking about Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. This was the January pick, and we do have a lovely special guest. If you could introduce yourself, you do have your handle here, the
Mm.
most amazing Instagram ever. So, maybe let us know what genres you also really like to read. Just spill your beans, all the beans. We want to know it all.
Hi everyone. My name is Ahtiya. My Instagram is Booking It with Ahtiya. I primarily read fantasy and contemporary romance, but I pretty much dabble in everything, or I try to dabble in everything. But those are my go-tos when I'm in a reading slump. I reach for fantasy and contemporary romance. I am a middle school science teacher. I do seventh grade homeroom. I also do eighth grade math. And yeah, that's really all I have for right now is, reading and work, work and reading, a nice
Hmm.
balance.
Well, and I see a few people have joined us. Hi, Tatiana. Hello, hello. Thank you guys for joining. So I don't know if anyone who's watching it is a follower of your Instagram, but I know your Instagram account is just so inspirational to me. Something to spell, ignore that. I would love to know what made you like start book reviewing, and to the extent that you are, because I feel like there's like people who casually like read, or but you put out really nice reviews constantly, and your Instagram is like really well thought out. So it's like, what made you start doing that?
I It's funny because I started with BookTube, and I just one day I was in college, and I don't know how I came upon, like, a book review, and I was like, "There's a whole world of people who like to read." Um, and then I started doing that, and when COVID hit, we all went virtual. And I think I was already on Instagram doing like bookish things, but it was very intermittent. It was not, to the extent that I do it now. And then COVID hit, and I needed an outlet, and I needed an outlet that wasn't so computer heavy, because everything for work that I was doing was computer heavy. I was also in grad school. Like it was a lot of computer time. And so I figured that even though Instagram is still on a device, it's not as much editing, because I was putting in like hours to edit a video, and it was a lot. I mean, it's a lot. It can become a lot. And I just really love taking pretty pictures, and I was stuck inside all the time, and I wasn't really going anywhere. So I was like, I might as well utilize the backyard and take some photos. And I realized that, and when I first started, I wasn't doing too many diverse recommendations.
Mm.
And as I kept going on, and with Bookstagram, I realized that there were so many Black Bookstagrammers that I just had no idea about. And I was like, what? There's this whole, I don't wanna call it a subset, but there's this whole community of Black booktubers and Black bookstagrammers and Black book bloggers that I just did not know about. And I kind of shifted, and I wanted to read more diversely on purpose. And now that's just what I gravitate towards. And I figured if I can offer that same inspiration, or even just be that same resource for other people who want to read diversely but do not know where to start, then why not?
I love that. That is so amazing. And then also Vina's here. Hello. And Ati, did you read the when it was first self-published? Because I know I also got like an arc from the publishing house, but it was first self-published.
Mhm.
So you read the original?
I tried reading the original,
Mm-hmm.
but I would get home and I'd be exhausted. So I actually bought the ebook, and
Oh,
that's what
okay,
I
okay.
primarily, and then I think it was like halfway through, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna be continuing on with this series. And I'm a fantasy reader, so we're big on matching sets. So I was
So you're
not
like,
about
I'll
to
wait.
have book one look one way and then book two look a different way. So I actually went out and got
I love that. I
the
love
slate
that.
published version as well.
It's a stunning book, and I'm glad that you were like, I'm gonna hold out till I get like a good matching set. Because you know what? Book collecting in itself is something completely separate, you know? So I love that for you. Oh my gosh. Okay. So for those of you who are have just joined and everything, we're talking about Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. And the first half of this live show, we won't dive into spoilers or anything. We're just gonna be talking about like how we rated the book, how we feel about it, favorite parts, least favorite parts, all the stuff, non-spoilery. If you did read it, let me know in the chat if you read it, what you rated it, any thoughts you have to share. If you haven't read it, if you're thinking about reading it, I'd love to know. I think it'd be cool to start off with ratings because I'm really interested, Atia, to hear how you rated it.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna ask her, what did you end up rating it?
I ended up rating it 4 stars, which just means that it's not a favorite. Like, that's really what 4 stars means for me. Like, that's the highest you can go, and if you go higher than that, like, it's a favorite book.
Mm-hmm.
I Yeah, I loved the characters. I felt like the characters were just so nuanced and so complex. Even the characters we didn't see a lot of, like, we don't see a lot of her parents. We don't really see a lot of her coworkers. Like, we see her at work, but we don't really see a lot of her parents or her coworkers. But I still felt like I had such a a strong grasp on who they were and her relationship with them. I thought the characters were phenomenal, and I kept wanting to read it. Like, I would be at work, and I was like, "Okay, when's my next break so I can get back to this?"
Yes.
What about
Like
you?
until the next reading break. Oh my god. I ended up rating it 4.5, and I totally agree with you in the sense that 5 star is a favorite book. So that's why I didn't feel inclined to give it a 5 star because I don't think it's an all-time new favorite. And again, I am very much a look up fantasy is also one of my favorite genres. So I feel like it takes a lot to for a contemporary to rank really high, but I do really enjoy the characters is a really good point. As I was reading it, it felt so believable, like real people talking and like sharing their heart. I also really felt inclined to give it a 4.5 because I cried like 3 times while reading this book, and I'm not an easy crier, so I was like really shocked. I'm either reading it at a interesting point in my life, like personally, or it just like it really was able to capture a lot of the emotions that I feel as a person. So I think it had a lot of strength, and it just really touched me in a certain way where I was like, yeah, I really hope more people do pick up this book and see other stories, either relating to this and being like, finally, or being like, this is an interesting perspective, and I appreciate it. So 4.5, and I might they might depending on how sometimes reviews change after like a month or so and you're like actually that
Yeah.
was a 5 star. I think about it so much, so I'm interested to see if that happens.
Yeah, for real.
And let's see, Tatiana said she hasn't had the chance to read it yet but wanted to pop in and show some love. Oh, thank you so much. See what you guys thought. Yeah, we're definitely going to spill all the beans, and I
Mhm.
hope you maybe do get a chance to read it because I do think it's a powerful story in itself, even with like the well developed characters. Like it's just a good story overall. Let's see. I actually liked it a lot better as I reread it. Oh, great. So when I read
Mm.
it originally, like 4 years ago, 4 years ago, I think I could relate more to her situation based on where I was in life now. I gave it a 4 star. Awesome. That's really cool. I'm glad you liked it more in the reread. That's always really telling of a story. Is in the reread, you leave liking it more because I feel like sometimes you just leave liking it less. Like, oh, I actually remember it being way more exciting. Mm. Okay. Now, I do want to dive into some themes that were talked a lot about in this book that I felt that were just really empowering. Um, First of all, at the beginning of this author's note, she mentions about how, like, I almost have to pull it up because I was reading it and I was like, yes, please, I love you. um, I'm not gonna be that weird person and read from the book for you guys because I know some of you guys have read it, but I just really loves how she
Yeah.
explains how she hopes to build like a community around seeing beautiful stories and celebrating life, which I think this book really does in such a good way. Let's see, that we tend to believe that the scars that come from escape against the pain of our life, anything, and that the beautiful marks are the ones that fortify us. It's like, yeah, defining life. It tends to be all about like what success is like everything from that checklist in the beginning. Like we focus on all the stuff that we need to get done. We need to have the kids, we need to have the great husband, we need to have the big house and the nice car. And it's like life is normally more about like every moment, even the painful ones. And I kind of wanted to ask you how you felt about, did she deliver that promise from the beginning? Is she really telling us, what is the meaning of life? Does she explore that well in this book?
Yeah, I definitely think that she did, that Jane Allen did. um, and I found myself as I was reading it, because usually, I mean, I love contemporary romance, so I know that not every book has to have like a plot, but I found this book was like just so many things were happening and it was just so believable. I mean, she has, her relationship, her situationship with Mark, and then she has, the things that's happening with her body and at work and everything. And it felt like such a full story, even though it's not done. We're getting two more. Well, the second book's already out, so we're getting that third book. But I think she definitely did deliver. I felt
Mm-hmm.
so. I couldn't relate to everything, but I don't think that you have to relate to a character to see their authenticity and see the value in them as a character. And I don't know, I just yeah, I definitely do think she delivered. I forgot that I hadn't even read the author's note, but yeah.
That's okay. I'm that weird person who's like, I need to read it all. Um, but I also I like what you said about like you don't need to relate per se to the individual events that a character goes through. Because if you think about it, fantasy. I've
Yeah.
never seen a dragon. Why would I? But I feel so connected to the emotions, this authentic feeling that this character is having. So I think that goes back to having great characters. And yeah, this was a crazy, I feel like character driven, but also very plot driven. I think it balanced both elements so well. There were so many just life elements that kept happening and happening, and you're like, when will it stop? And it's like, well, no, life is very much like that. It'll keep going without your permission.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was I mean, it just felt like, and of course no spoilers, but at one point I was like, "Whoa." There's a lot going on. Not in a bad way, but in a way that it's like I've definitely felt like that. Like just so many things are being thrown at you and you're just like, "Okay, I guess." Like I guess I'll keep going. I'll cry a bit and then I'll get up and then I'll keep it moving because I have no choice essentially. So I definitely
Hmm.
Tabby, she's a great character. She's such a great character, and I don't know, I'm excited to see where the rest of the series goes.
Me too. I was literally like contemplating, like, do I buy this second book right now? Like, I could.
Do it.
Amazon's real nice. You can get it in a couple days. That's how I was feeling. Oh. Um, it's something I did want to bring up, and I don't know if it was just me, but after the first chapter, I cried. I was like, so I felt how she felt, and I was wondering if the first chapter impacted you in such a way too, or if it was just me.
No, it didn't. That was one of my favorite scenes. Like I read the
Mm.
first chapter and I immediately went to my notes and was like, I love the fact that she included this scene and just it was just so raw. Like it was so how do I say this without giving spoilers? It
Well,
was
it's the first chapter, so it's not too spoilery talking about
true.
the exact events. Well, and we won't dive into the specificity of what the characters were saying, but basically our protagonist gets pulled over by a cop after having received bad news from going to the doctor's office, headed to work, and she gets pulled over by a cop, and it's such a stressful moment for her realizing like how scared she is of life and how it just she's just so burdened by so many things, and it was such a powerful moment. So I feel like maybe that's a good summary, not giving away too many spoilers or
Yeah.
maybe what's happening with her, but it's what's happened in that moment, and it was just such a powerful. I cried. I was like, I feel her stress, and I felt that stress before. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that was probably my top favorite scene in the book. I have several, but that scene was just like, this is Chef's kiss. And it sucks that it is Chef's kiss that it impacted us so much.
Yeah.
Um, but it did. And then oh my goodness. And then the date she had with Mark after that was just and his reaction to that was, I
Oh, I do wanna talk about that too. I've made a couple of notes about, like, themes to talk about, and I guess maybe we could talk about that one first. The
mhm.
idea, and this isn't a spoiler exactly about the conversation they were having, but an idea that was thrown around is that because you're a beautiful woman, you have nothing to worry about. Is that what you were talking about, his
Yep.
reaction? Okay.
Mhm.
'Cause let's unpack that. Because I'm they like, it was brought up in passing, but I do think it's a common idea that, like, "Oh, you're just a woman, like, flash your boobs, you'll be fine.
Mhm.
Get through life."
Yeah.
And it's that it hurt me so bad.
Yeah,
So how did you feel about it?
I had to reread it. I was like, "No, he did not just he couldn't have said that to her." And then she didn't say anything. I was like, "I this is this is interesting." This I just that was and I love the fact that she included that as well. I mean, so many things that she included. Just that double burden of being Black and being a woman. And I often think about, who is it? W.E.B. Du Bois and his idea of the double consciousness. And I actually wrote a whole paper about this in college about how for Black women, even just other marginalized identities, there's usually this triple consciousness, right? You're a citizen of America, you're Black, you're a woman. Like
You're a
there's
woman.
layers
Mhm.
to that. And usually people don't think about that triple layer that a lot of us do contend with on a daily basis. And so much of Tabitha's journey throughout the book relates to that triple conscious that like blurring of her being Black and her being a woman, and the people that she's talking to kind of only see her as one or the other. Like her
Yes.
boss sees her as Black, Mark sees her as a woman, and probably the only people that see her as both are her best friends who also are Black women. And I
Mhm.
love them too. I love their inclusion of them, and I would read books just about the two of them.
For real, like, I was really I feel like something that gave me a similar feeling to this was The Bold Type. I don't know if you've ever watched that show,
I need to.
but
It's on my
it's on your list? Okay. It's a good show. It, like, makes me feel very much like how this book felt about, like, empowered women just trying to hang in together when life is just so hard, and I really like that that was the center of the book. Because if you wanted to make this book even realer, like, again, real deep, like, it's like, maybe you don't have real good friends. Like, maybe you don't have a lot of people, and I really like that the book didn't make it too much of a burden. Because
Mhm.
even the cover or, like, the title of, like, "Black Girls Must Die Exhausted," I was a little scared going into this being like, "Oh god, this is gonna make me, like, hate being myself." I was a little scared of that. I don't know if you had that fear, if anyone else has that fear picking this up, being like, "I don't wanna feel sad or pitied," and I feel like this book does such a good job not really pitying, but, like, acknowledging all the stressors, acknowledging the triple consciousness that is a constant, but then still like having these moments of, well, you do have people you love, or you're searching for people for those romantic interests and all that stuff, that you're in the search and the pursuit, but to acknowledge all the privileges that we do have. And I think that's also something that's great about Tabitha's character, is that she's a well-educated woman trying to pursue a career.
Yeah,
It was very interesting, and I'm happy she put that note in about appearance, because throughout the book, you hear about Tabitha, like, fixing her appearance, her hair, her makeup. It's really a part of who she is and how she presents to the world as being a well-kept woman, and that when she doesn't do her hair right or all this stuff, how she feels less than. And
yeah,
it's definitely a part of her character, even if it's on the back burner, because it's not the whole book isn't about her
yeah,
appearance, but just for everyone who hasn't read it. But it definitely feels like it's a constant thought about, like, how am I looking? How am I actively dressing right now? How am I actively showing my or presenting my gender and all that stuff? So I thought it was such a great point, and it's interesting to talk about how, like, for guys, it's like, oh well, I see you as a lady, so you don't have the same issues. It's like, well, I'm a black woman. I
yeah.
have similar issues, or I have different issues. So I love that point. I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, "Oh, no, he did not just do that." Oh my gosh. Oh, wait, let's see. Tatiana said oh, wait, did he just say that?
I
Mhm.
really thought I read it wrong. I was like, "This must be a mistake."
Be a mistake. Oh gosh. Let's see. Initially, when it was published, some people pushed back against the title, thinking it would be some book that only showed hardship. Exactly. I also was kind of thinking of that, like based off of the summary too, the summary of the book being like a woman who has it all together in her 30s, has, boyfriend material, great job, yada yada, then has hardship. And that's kind of the summary. It's like that's the synopsis, not the summary, sorry. That's the synopsis. It's like she's going to face hardship. So I can understand the initial pushback, but I'm glad they kind of kept it because you know what? Just because life is exhausting or stressful does not mean it doesn't have its moments of beauty or friendship or all those things. So I'm glad they kept it.
And I love how the grandmother explains it. I love that the title is addressed pretty much at the beginning of the book, and because I also had the same, like, "Is this gonna make me feel depressed?" And then when I read that scene where the grandmother goes on and, explains this saying, or I guess Tabitha's recalling the grandmother saying this to her, I was like, "Wow, like, that makes so much sense," and it's not a, finality type of thing, it's more of a, wow, like, everything that life throws at Black women. It's more reflective, I guess, for someone who's on
Yeah.
the outside
It's like
because,
acknowledging that there's an issue.
exactly.
Yeah, but not pitying or being mournful where it's like, "Oh, I can't do anything." Like, "Oh, no, you're just gonna die and keel over, and there's nothing we can do about it." It was
Yeah,
more just like, yeah, reflective. Like, you guys, you, like, specifically Black women deal with so much. It's exhausting. It's like, yes, yes, it is.
thank you, grandmother.
And I loved it. I loved it. And something that this book also brings up a lot, is fighting in a sense, not just fighting for your job, like standing up for yourself and pushing boundaries of like where people might see you as a woman or a minority and be like, do we need you? Are you bringing the perspective we need at work?
Mhm.
So fighting for your place at work, fighting for romance, fighting for your friendship. Like there's this constant subject in this book of just like I need to fight for everything that I have, and that's also a part of the exhaustion. I
Mhm.
wanted to hear how you felt about that. Do you agree, or do you personally relate to that at all?
I definitely relate. Yeah, I'm just, like, thinking. I don't relate currently in my work situation. I am surrounded on a daily basis by beautiful Black people. So that does take off some of that pressure that I didn't realize was there when I was in environments where I was a minority, and that sometimes you don't realize how heavy that can weigh on you to a certain degree until you're at a breaking point or until you are now in a situation where you're not the minority. And I just I don't know, I loved the idea of fighting. That was another favorite scene, the whole "fight for you" or "fight for us" scene with her in the car with Mark. I, like, highlight the whole page, because there is this expectation of fighting, especially being a Black woman, and there's this oh, who is it? I think it's Zora Neale Hurston. And "Their eyes were watching God." There's a line where it's like, "Black women are the mules of the world," and I will never forget that line. I forgot who wrote it, but I will never forget that line. Just this idea that we are always expected to fight and to be ready to fight no matter what's going on. And that was something I had to contend with personally even before reading the book. And there was a point in time where I just tuned out the news. I was like, "I can't I'm like, peace out. Like, I can't do this." There's even to a certain degree, I still do it. I'm a little bit more in tuned, but there was like a year where I was just like, yeah, this is exhausting and I need to take a step back from this.
Mhm. I just want to ask for like timeline. Was it during COVID by any chance that you were like? that year was, or was it even before then?
It was in college, but I think it
Mm,
was I'm trying to think what had happened. There was it around the time of Mike Brown? It might have been. It might have been. Or even after Trayvon Martin. After the verdict for Trayvon Martin. I was
mhm.
just like, I kind of lost faith in the system.
Yes,
I lost
understandably so.
faith in the system. And then like things just kept happening. It was like a tidal wave. And I was like, yeah, we can't do this.
Mm-mm. No, and you have to, and I think that was also a big conversation. Well, now in this past year,
Mhm.
after everything, it's been like, okay, how do we protect our joy? And Black joy has been more so a conversation. So I really appreciate that. It's interesting because I feel like this book doesn't talk too much about finding joy, and that's what
Mhm.
I'm really hopeful for in the next one. This was definitely talking about the fight, the coming up every day, going up to bat, being like, "Hey, I deserve a happy, fulfilling life," and you keep fighting. Um, and I feel like in ways that I relate to Tabby in a sense of being told very often that, oh, because of your appearance, I'm an actor, and because of your appearance, everyone's like, oh, you're a hot topic now. You're like you are like the pinnacle of what everyone wants. But then it's funny people say that, but then in auditions and when I talk to teachers and coaches, they're challenging me. They're like, life's gonna be hard. Are you ready to commit? Are you gonna prove to me that you deserve this opportunity? And I'm like, didn't I earn the opportunity? Like that very moment in this book where she's like, didn't I deserve this? Like, didn't I earn it for my hard work? And he's like, nope, technically I should have gave it to someone else, but I'm like, here you go. Um,
He's
so
an
I
interesting
felt
character.
he's
Chuck,
an interesting
Chris,
character. Yeah.
Chuck,
Him
Chris.
and the police officer are very interesting characters that pop up where I'm like, I appreciate them because they seem like real people in the world, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to hear more from them, but I probably should. I should be open to hearing more about what are they thinking? What is happening in their head? Um, but yeah, I am sure a lot of people probably relate to that feeling of I need to not only keep fighting for this spot that I feel like I deserve, whether it's a job or in a relationship, fight for the attention of someone, but being like, okay, now I have to continuously prove myself now even after getting it. It's like there's no break.
Yeah,
You're just like forever fighting.
yeah.
Um,
Really loved I forget what the supervisor's name is. I don't know if it's Chris or Chuck or
I
something
think
with
it's Chris.
C. All right, we're gonna go with Chris. I he That was interesting. That because on the one hand, I was like, this is kind of messed up that you're telling her this. But on the other hand, I appreciated his concept of there are so many people who are where they are, and that chance they got, they did not deserve. So who's to say that I'm wrong for doing this for you? I was like,
Mhm.
okay, maybe you shouldn't have told her that because now she's gonna be
Well,
doubly thinking about everything. I
mhm, and
was like, what are
it's
your
so
motivations here?
it's a really weird motivation tactic, and I had something literally to the exact T that she had, where it's like someone gave me an experience, and then like everyone, like my teacher would be like, okay, now everyone leave. Oh, except Jess, you hang back, and then it's like let's have a talk. Okay, so you shouldn't even be here, and I want to tell you that I believe in you, so I'm going to give you this chance, even though you didn't earn it. And I'm like, why? So I think this is an actual train of thought that the people like Chris in the world think is like okay. And I guess it does make sense and like that people have different opportunities for different reasons and that being the most outspoken seems like a strength, but it's like, hey, maybe it's like my job as a mentor is not just give jobs to the people who are outspoken, but also give opportunities to people who I see potential in. I'm like, cool. Maybe you still should have said it differently, is all I'm thinking.
Yeah, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Just
Perhaps.
a smidge.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, and I think was this the person who said the quote that you were saying?
No,
Elton
I this
Storm? Oh, no.
he was killed, and I think this was around the time that I was talking about. It was after Trayvon Martin.
Oh, that court. Okay, that made sense. I was about
Yeah,
to say, I was like, that name did not sound familiar in the sense of being a writer. I was like,
yeah,
what
no, no, no.
writer is
Toni
that?
Morrison wrote not Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, which one of
Mhm.
my favorite books. I need to reread it.
Mhm. Amazing. Okay. Well, besides fighting, and that I think was a huge issue, or not issue, a huge topic that was talked about in this book. I did want to ask you, is there any moments in this book that you were like, didn't like, disagreed, anything like that?
Hmm.
I love the long pause. Like that gives me hope.
Oh, oh, this is spoiler territory.
Oh, okay, okay. We'll talk about this later then maybe. How about
Yeah,
that?
I was like, "Wait a
Okay,
minute."
cool. Good. Okay, that's good though. I'm happy. Well, we are at the 30-minute mark, so maybe we can start getting into spoilers. But I like at first I was like, okay, maybe she doesn't have anything because I honestly couldn't pick out anything that I truly like disliked. And normally a lot of books that I like that I'm trying to read more widely, and especially this is adult contemporary. I personally read a lot of like YA contemporary, YA fantasy. It's definitely been the genre I've leaned on, especially within this past year. I'm like, I need happy-go-lucky thoughts. So I was very interested because I didn't have many complaints. I feel like the only other story that I read kind of similar to this is Queenie. Did you read Queenie? I feel like I've seen your
Yes,
review for Queenie.
Queenie was so
Very good.
messy. So good though.
Oh,
He was a hot
oh,
mess.
okay, okay. I agree. That was a book where objectively I was like, I really like the points that are being made, but there was a lot of things that like triggered me personally and that were just hard to read. So I really enjoyed because again, the title of this book made me go into it going like, okay, there's gonna be a lot of hardship. It's gonna make me feel like Queenie did, where Queenie like made me mid book stop and like have a breakdown because I was like, no. So I was very happy to pick this up because luckily my expectation wasn't what I read. I read something completely different that had moments that were hard and I did cry, but at the same time felt very like not hopeless, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Since it is 30 minutes in, I think it's safe to start going into spoilers. If you haven't read this book and you don't want spoilers, don't continue watching. Maybe come back after you've read it. Or if you are planning on reading it, maybe not even like this year, like later in life, you want to read it, spoilers are probably okay for the near future, right? So I'd love to hear what was objectively something that you're like, oh, I didn't like
It wasn't
that, or
even I
subjective.
didn't like it. It was more of a like, why this choice? And this was after um spoiler alert. This was after the passing of Granny Tab and she calls Mark and that whole fiasco happens with Mark.
Oh,
And I understood her reasoning. I understood Tabby's reasoning, but I feel as if I don't know, it's like I'm torn because at the same time I get that she was tired of everything and she was tired of being pushed around, she was tired of being treated like dirt and she just wanted to make someone else feel that way because she felt so powerless. Um I don't know, that was a weird way to do that,
it
and I
was.
don't
I
know if
agree.
it fell in line with her character
Mhm.
because she wasn't normally impulsive, but then again, her grandmother did pass, so I don't even know if it's something that I dislike, where it was just like, "You should have made that choice, Tabby." I understand why, but you shouldn't have made this choice. But
Definitely.
that was really it. But yeah, I did
Yeah,
not
that scene
think
threw
of
me
it.
out of the book for a minute. I was like, "Oh god."
Yeah. I did not expect the passing of Granny Tab. Like that just completely
Oh.
I was like, "Wait, what?"
I feel like I saw it coming. I saw it coming from the second they were like, um,
She had to put her
"Oh,
feet up.
well, she started putting her feet up more regularly, and then on top of that, they were making the senior prom a big deal, like, her going
Mhm.
over to do her makeup for some reason was, like, a big deal, and I'm like, "She visits you every Sunday, why is it a big deal? Like, she missed putting on your makeup, that's not a big deal." So, I feel like they were making the situation seem big, so that way the fallout would seem really painful. So to me, I was like, "This looks like we're heading towards guilty lane," like, so I kind of felt that in the writing. But what I did like, though I don't think that weird moment with Mark was definitely gross, and I think was supposed to make us like feel gross as readers because like yeah. But what I liked is that every character in this book had their like faults, if that made sense.
Mhm.
Every person wasn't just stereotypically good. Everyone had, for the most part, their faults, and I think that was a big part of the storyline and one of the themes of being like what is it like I forget the phrase they used in it, but the rare person or the rare type of
Mm.
person who is like every single person is messy and it's just who are you going to invest in to see change and who's going to come back and be like I'm going to keep trying to do my best. So I kind of liked how that moment made it seem like Tabby wasn't completely perfect, if that made sense, which I appreciated.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
was
I'm
just
like,
gross
"She too
to read.
good."
It was just gross to read.
Oh,
I
super.
You know what I want from book 2? I want more of her parents because
Mm.
especially now that Granny Tab's not in the picture. Rest in peace, Granny Tab. I want more of her parents because we get the phone calls with her mom who questionable.
Yeah,
And then
questionable behavior all the way.
we have those like 2 or 3 interactions with the father, but we have a lot of backstory about the father, and I would love to see where her relationship with them is going to go because I feel like she did rely so heavily on her grandmother for emotional support outside of, my cat's about to enter the call. As
Yay!
Oh, she fell. Aside from her friends. No, she's uninterested. Um, and so I'm interested to see how she's going to, you know, shift that emotional need because she went to Alexis and she went to Layla, but as we know from the epilogue, they weren't really sharing with each other like their actual hardships. I feel like a lot
Mhm.
of that Tabby was doing with her grandmother. So I'm interested to see in book 2 who she's going to rely on in the same way that she was relying to the grandmother.
Yeah, or almost like not me wishing bad things to happen, but like if seeing someone who has that kind of vacuum in that hole and it's like, okay, like now how do you move forward? Because I feel like that is a huge part of grief where it's like, yeah, who do you now express all your feelings to? And if you don't find it someone who's an adequate match, like how do you fix all of that? Because I agree with you with her friends being a solid support in the sense of like she could call them up and have drinks and kind of talk about things, but it's still like their friendship was so like immature in the sense that when it came to keeping secrets, it's like, okay, I need to keep all these secrets from this friend and I need to make sure that I hang out with you enough. And it was all very shaky. So I'm interested to see um how that vacuum ends up filling out and I don't know, I feel like in life, it's never really perfect, like, "Oh, I found a new person to talk to, great." It's normally like, "Oh, okay, I need to figure this out because 'cause I'm sad."
Yeah. Yeah, you kinda like you
Yeah.
pivot in a sense.
Mhm. And then I see, Venus like, "I like the group of friends." That was such a huge sell throughout this whole book, and I like that it wasn't just, like, your ragtag, like, super supportive girlfriends who are like, "I love you through thick and thin." It's like, no, they're facing their own traumas and griefs, and they don't know what they're doing either. They're trying their best. So I really appreciated how kind of messy everybody was in a sense. I
Yeah.
know you also mentioned that you liked the group of friends too.
Yeah, I think for me when I'm reading a contemporary, one of the things that I find myself wanting more of sometimes is more character development for those groups of friends. And I know that
Mhm.
it's hard to do if you're balancing, you know, the main character's trajectory, and if it's a romance, so you're balancing the romance. But I felt like we got so much of Alexis and we got so much of Layla and what they were going through because it did impact Tabitha in a way. And what was happening to them was not happening in a vacuum. Like when, you know, Alexis found out that her husband was horrible, or when she accepted the fact that he was horrible, you know, Tabby felt that. Like she felt for her friend who she's known since she was a child. And when Layla ends up in the hospital, you know, she felt that. And so I love just how just thought out they were, and they weren't there just for venting reasons, I guess, was also nice
Yeah.
because they weren't really venting to each other, which I found so realistic. I realized, like, a couple years ago, I was like, "I don't tell my friends nearly as much as I should," simply because I think as a community, we don't do that. We don't emotionally unload on those who are closest to us because we don't wanna be seen as a burden, but then you
Yes.
realize that there's so many different things, like, how can you see a full person or how can you trust a person fully if you're not willing to take that first step and be vulnerable with them, even if it's uncomfortable? And I think that's
Mhm.
something that was I'm looking forward to seeing how their friendship evolves and develops in the second book as well.
Yeah. I really think it's going to be so interesting again because the characters, we saw so much of them and how, yeah, your friends do really impact the way that you feel and how you feel about life and yourself too. Because I know when you have a fight with someone, it's like you blame yourself. You're like, I could have, what could I have done better? And all that stuff. And the venting is so, so true. In real life, we don't spend 2 hours with your like best friend being like, my life sucks. I hate it. No, it's like you make a joke, and I like how they depict it in the book. You're like, you tell them like, "Oh, work's so bad," and they're like, "Ha, let's go TP his apartment." Like
Yeah, then you
you
move
try
on.
and yeah, you try and enjoy each other's time together because it's like all you really have. It's like I now bad things have happened. This is my time to kind of escape from it because I enjoyed like my best friend's time. It was very interesting. And then another theme that I kind of wanted to bring up was the idea that Tabby, as a journalist, kind of
Mhm.
became a monolith now for marginalized people, and this idea that when you have the time, when you have enough privilege and money, and when you fight to the certain level where people are now looking up to you for leadership, you have to you have to give back. You have to sacrifice almost your peace of mind to continue this path of justice and like righteousness. How did you feel about that while reading it? Did you see that?
I That's another thing I want more of in the second book. I have so many things that, like, I really hope this gets talked about in the second book. Um, but I love that she was always trying to give back or to do these stories about her own community. And I guess that goes back to what her supervisor was saying about, like, you have interesting perspective, you just need to speak up. Which, you know, we wish it was all that simple, Chris, thanks. But I'm interested to see because I feel like that in itself is gonna become a burden. You know, like, what happens when she wants to just, you know, report on the coffee shop that opened down the street, you know, when she wants to report on the happy stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's there because that's real life, but I hope that the flip side of that is talked about in the second book.
Yes. I hope so too. And I was actually thinking like I think that would be my only critique in the sense that if she's having this medical issue because of stress per se, it's like how are we going to talk to the audience now who also relate to this character and face their own stress and may have their own medical problems or just anxiety in life because of all of this. It's like, well, how do you reconcile that? And what if you are forced to be a monolith and live an unhealthy lifestyle now because of that? And I'm again, yeah, I'd love to see that in the second book because in this first book, it was talked about, but it
Mhm.
didn't seem like she was ever picking herself. She was just like, even after, sadly, the passing, it was like she still was like, I need to show up to work the next day. So I just feel like that, sure, badass, like, yeah, she's going back to work. I'm like, but that is so unhealthy. How long can you bury your feelings and not have any physical ramifications? I'm very interested to see how it's talked about in the next few books. Also because of the epilogue, I'm not even sure like if she's still going to be having issues with that. If but like maybe she wants more than one kid. I don't know. So it's like I'm interested to see how they talk about they brought up this very serious medical issue that has been possibly caused from the stressful life that she's lived. Like, how are you going to manage the stress so you can live a long, healthy life? That's my question. I'd like to know the answer.
Yeah, for real.
hmm and I also wanted to ask you if you had any themes that you saw that you were like, I'd love to talk about, or like have any questions or
I
anything.
think we pretty much covered it. We've kind of been talking about just like love in general. There's a lot of
hmm
love in the book. You know, there's platonic love, romantic love, and what else? Oh, familial love. I just love the way that love was talked about and just all the different ways that it was shown. Because even though their relationships had their faults, they were still trying to show love in some way. And I don't know, her situation with Mark is interesting. I feel like it's so interesting because he's not the perfect male protagonist, and I don't think he's supposed to be. And you know, when she has that whole blow up fight with him in the car, where she's like, "You want me to fight for us? I'm fighting for everyone, and now you want me to fight for us as well." I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, girl. Like, yeah." And then she gets out the car, and in the next chapter, she's like, "Well, maybe I was too hard on him." And at first, I was like, maybe not. But then it was the conversation with Granny, Granny Tab, and Miss Gretchen. Yeah, Miss Gretchen. Because Miss Gretchen was like, "Kick him to the curb," you know? And Granny Tab was like, "You know, well, like, you know, like maybe he's gone through a lot." And it was just interesting having this elderly white woman. Actually, she was mixed. Wait. Yes. Was she mixed? Or was he mixed?
Granny Tab?
Granny Tab was white. The dad's
Yes.
mixed. That's what it was.
Dad is mixed.
Having this elderly white woman who raised a black son and telling her black granddaughter, like, you know, he's not going to be perfect. And he has these things in his past that he has to contend with. And is it on your timeline? No, it's not on your timeline. But that doesn't mean that you should automatically kick him to the curb. And I found that was so that kind of put the whole situation with Mark in a different perspective for me because I think, you know, the narrative now is like he needs a job, he needs money, he needs to know exactly what he wants, like at that point in time. And while I don't think Tabitha should spend the entirety of her life waiting for Mark, I do think just having her step back for a moment and be like, while he shouldn't have used his past to try and manipulate my feelings, I do understand what he was talking about. And it was so interesting too because they went a year and a half. That was a note that I had where it's like they went a year and a half and she had not met his parents. And I was like, that's not a red flag to you? That's not a red flag. Like, girl, it's been 18 months. 18
That's a
months
really
into
long time. Holidays, like you've definitely passed something where it's like family gatherings.
yeah. So that was a little weird. And I guess that really just goes into the whole like having these shallow relationships. Not shallow that's based in like material things, but just these relationships that are there because they just should be there. You
hmm
know, a year and a half and you don't know that his father was an alcoholic. Like, and you consider him marriage material. Like, you want to spend the rest of your life with him, but you don't know this like major detail of his life after 18
Yeah,
months.
I think it makes you really start to question about like what is like marriage material. What is the expectation? What is acceptable? Kind of same similar with Lexi and Rob being like everyone is hating on this couple for seeming so perfect and rubbing it in everyone's face. Little do we know, they're so far from perfect. Like that that what's the norm, what's acceptable, and like deciding that for yourself and not idolizing like, oh, we have the perfect relationship, we just see each other on the weekends, it's fine. I think that's the biggest red flag, being like you only see each other for the weekends. Like you're not even like, I don't know, like after a year or so, you're not thinking as 30-year-olds, like,
Mm.
let's move in, let's save rent, let's in
Yeah, go out
LA
to dinner,
too.
yeah.
I was like, okay, that this seems like a fling. If you're only hooking up and like, I don't know, the whole bit about he pulls up in his car to make sure, like it's like you if you're leaving with him and he is the only mode of transportation, I'm thinking, okay, of course you're like sleeping over at his place then and everything. That's why I was like, red flag. He asked her to drive that one time, the day that he like broke up with her and stuff. Spoiler,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, red flag. He's asking you to drive. It means he wants you to drive yourself away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like what Venus said about Mark wasted her time.
He did, but we shouldn't throw him away. That was my question for you. Do you ship
Mhm.
her with Mark? I'm a fantasy reader, so of course I'm thinking about who ships who.
Who we shipping? I definitely ship him and her together more so than her with like Todd or whoever the guy was that she
Yeah.
started seeing a little bit. Because I definitely think even in your 30s, even if you want children and want marriage like soon, I don't think you should settle just because I need to have a kid, so I need to just find any nice guy. I kind of like that she does love Mark. Like, well, I got really worried in the beginning when she said that Mark was marriage material because I was like, oh no, he's gonna be boring and he doesn't make her happy. She mentioned that he makes her laugh. That like she'll like actively miss him when he's not around, or that she'll want to talk to him. And I was like, okay, so you clearly love him and you think of him very fondly, and that like you find him super attractive. I'm like, girl, this sounds
Go
perfect.
ahead.
Like, do it. So I ship them in that sense, but I also, when he started to reveal more so of his personal issues and gripes, I kind of understood that car fight being like, I just told you, like, I want kids, I need to do something soon, and you took that as an exit. I think I would be more upset over that than like the emotional manipulation, because I kind of can see that he was just saying, "This is why I broke up with you." He wasn't saying like, or he probably, maybe he was also being like, "This is why I broke up with you, and this is why you should get back with me
It was
because I'm
twofold.
broken." Yeah, yeah. So I can definitely see that it was just like not ideal, but I don't know. From what I heard of like what he was saying in the car, I personally would have gotten so upset. I'd be like, okay, like this needs to end because this is not what I want. I think the reason she's so upset is because this she wants him. So it's like, so it is very serious between them. And I'm interested to see how they pair off. I'm shipping that she feels loved. I'm shipping that she feels supported. So I think that's what's important. Seeing him at the funeral was really touching. I was like, good. He's not just there for the sex. Because also after that night ended, I was like, okay, he's gone for good. He's not, he's not coming back. Especially he threw it in earlier, like, oh, I have plenty of options. I there's so much attention happening, and I'm like, bitch, no, there isn't. You like her too.
I
He was just
love
trying to
how
hurt her.
was it Layla pointed out after that whole horrific night, and she was like, "Girl, most men ghost you when they get uncomfortable, but like you full out with Psycho, and he's still like, 'How are you doing?'"
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
intervene.
Yes, yes. So like I kind of ship them, even though I feel like they're both coming to terms with things. So I don't know. I don't know if she should keep wasting her time, because I don't know. I would also call it a waste of time if she had brought up, "Do you want to have kids? Do you want to get married?" And he lied and was like, "Yeah, one day." That is rude. I think that is rude, because especially in your 30s and you know the time is clicking, like ticking away. And she's actively said, like, my clock has sprung. I got 6 months. So it's like it is kind of more rude to stay knowing that like maybe our ideal lives don't align, but then emotions, they suck. Having those emotions suck. Loving someone and being like, we're not good for each other in the long term, but I still want to be with you.
Yeah.
Sucky. Oh, and then I think Chloe had a question. Would you recommend this book to anyone, or would you read more from this author?
Yes and yes.
I agree.
Yes
I'm
and
definitely picking up the rest of the series, like without a doubt. And I don't know if she has any other books out. I need to do more research and see what other things she has out. She might. I don't know if this was her debut. She first wrote this self-published, and then it got picked up by who published this?
Harper.
Harper. I was supposed to say Macmillan. I'm like, I don't know any of this.
They're all
So I
merging
think
anyway.
it's huh?
They're all merging anyway. This is her first novel.
Okay, this is her debut. That's so enlightening too, because I feel like this is such a enthralling story. I would look forward to her future works. I think they're heartfelt, like character driven with a really solid plot. Like I would recommend this to a lot of people. Oh, let's see. Yeah. She originally self-published all three. Oh, she did write all three self-published. Oh, that's really cool.
So,
Yeah, there's clearly a lot of heart in this story, um, and it's very telling on the page. Not only is it funny as well as engaging, but it just has a lot of heart, which is just great. Highly recommend. We are coming up to the hour, and I know it's getting late for you, but is there anything else that you like really loved about this book, or really wanted to mention before we leave? And anybody in the chat, if you have questions, let us know too.
no, I think we pretty much covered it all. I was writing my notes before I logged in, and I was like, wow, there's so much here. I might just make it a whole blog post because the Instagram caption doesn't like me sometimes. So we'll
Is
see.
there like a limit? I don't do Instagram well enough. Is there a word limit? Okay, let
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, I get why there's a limit, but it's annoying when a book like really slaps and you're just like, I can't say all the time.
Yes, yes. That's like the only benefit that I find to YouTube is like being filtered. Sure, like algorithms, all that stuff. Like, will people be able to find your review? That'll be hard. But you can make a 30 long minute video, and you're just like, this book slaps.
You just keep saying it.
hmm Let's see. Vina was talking about, yeah, the anxiety of when the police officer pulled her over was, I think, just the pinnacle of this book. I think it was such a powerful start, and it was so, I don't know, moving to me personally, being like I was crying because I was like, I really align with her stress of everything of life and it all combining to one, and having to still be strong and still come to work and fight. I think a powerful moment. I don't know if I'd say that's my favorite moment of the book, but I do think it is the best opening possible moment to follow this derailing story.
Definitely.
hmm Awesome. Well, if no one in the chat has any more questions, I'm letting you guys know February's book pick is Sweet Hand. I think it's currently like the Kindle book is available, or I think it's like $4, or you could get it from your library because I think it was released last year. It's a very cute romance to what I've heard. I actually haven't read it. Have you read Sweet Hand? I feel like you have.
So
You don't think so? Okay, okay. I'm straight lying. I'm just kidding. I feel like so many people have messaged me since the vote came out that we picked it, that they were like, "Oh my god, it's such a good book! Like I read it." So I feel like it's a very popular book that a lot of people have read and enjoyed. So I'm very much looking forward to it. And the live show will be in like about a month, like mid March. So look forward to that. Sweet Hand, our next read. But oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough for joining me on this live show. I really do enjoy your Instagram content, your book reviews, your personality. I love it all, and I really hope that everyone who is watching that you check out the link in the description. I have her Instagram linked below. It's definitely worthwhile. It is really inspiring. I know you mentioned that earlier, where you saw this kind of whole community and you wanted to hope to continue to spark that kind of light for others. And I definitely think you do, and you do such a great job at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're
So
actually one
everyone
of
follow.
you're actually one of the first Black booktubers that I watched. So when you messaged me, I was like,
That's crazy. Really? I
yeah.
feel like I was so late to the game, which is so funny.
I was also late to the game watching YouTube.
Oh, that's really touching. Thank you for letting me know that. I had no clue. I know
The
I
fact that
feel
you're
like
also an actress and like I have a history in theater, I was like, this is perfect.
oh, thank you. That is perfect. Theater has my heart and soul. But I'm happy. I'm happy. And I'm glad that like I hope to continue to support more people. Like obviously you deserve the support. You deserve even more followers and things like that, even more love. So everyone make sure to go and check out the link below and spread that love. Because it does impact a lot of people. Like you even sharing that with me really fills me with so much joy. And when I get those comments from people who are like, oh, like you were one of the first that I found, or you've helped me find some books that really inspired me the same way it did for you. It's like that's why I do this.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice to hear. Okay, wait, let's see. Vina was saying
Ooh.
something else. See, I read Street Hand. It's probably not at the library since it's
Mm.
self-pubbed. Oh, okay, it is self-published. I love that I accidentally keep picking self-published books. It's like it's a joy. I was like, it's so cheap on Kindle. Great.
They
That's
deserve
probably
love.
why. It is such a well-renowned book. I'm so surprised that it's self-published and so popular, which is amazing. Um, oh, but yeah, I always get really sidetracked with the goodbyes. I'm like, I have everything to say right now. Oh my god. But that is it for the live show. Do you have any announcements? Are you doing anything, any projects you'd like to share with anyone?
I don't of course, everything just flew out my head. I don't think so. No.
Well, no pressure. If y'all just follow her Instagram, you'll know everything.
There we go. There we go.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining, and thank you everyone else for joining in the chat. I will hopefully see you guys all next month and enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Well, not
you.
me.